a couple different threads. One, the U.S. military in this country, our military runs propaganda operations against our population, and they do it on social media. And of course, they do it through the conventional media as well, and they have for a long time. But it's certainly gotten more aggressive. So that's illegal. It's immoral. Anyone who participates in that should be in prison. But it happens, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to stop it. So we know that they lie to our population about a whole bunch of things, including what they're doing. Two, we know that in the past 15 years, you see these kind of fat, effeminate generals all of a sudden talking about how climate change is like one of the main national security threats, and like the purpose of the U.S. military is to fight climate change. There's been a lot of that, and it's very confusing to people like me who think of the purpose of the U.S. military as like shooting people trying to invade our country. Like, what does climate change have to do with national security? But they've been saying that a lot. And your description suddenly makes it all make sense. Like, a lot of what they do is trying to mitigate, or saying they're trying to mitigate, the effects of climate change. I mean, I guess this is more out in the open than I realized until right now.
I would call it masking the effects, because they're certainly not mitigating it. Everything they do, every short-term toxic surface cool down comes at the cost of a worsened overall warming and damage to the planet. And you're completely correct, Tucker, completely correct in the U.S. military top brass statements on the record that they consider the collapsing climate system the greatest national security threat of all. So when you have so many military bases at sea level, some of which are already being inundated, that's a part of the problem. But you have other elements, for example, and this is from a perspective of the existence of the human race and how much longer we're going to be here. The ozone layer is near functional collapse right now. It's not the hairspray cans. Single greatest damaging factor is climate engineering, period. Not just the oxidizing particles that are being dispersed in our atmosphere, but the manipulation of those particles with extremely powerful frequency transmissions. So we know that of all the towers being put up everywhere for, quote, communications, fake trees and, all the different forms they come in, we know that many of those installations are being supplied with 10 times more power than they need. That's part of my background in the electrical field. I know people that work on these towers. 10 times more power than they need for communications. Why do they need that much more power? 1,000% more power. And we know these facilities are being used to manipulate the electrically conductive atmospheric particulates. There's a repelling effect caused from these transmissions, because we can see the effect on water vapor loops. So if we look at the flash flooding in Texas as an example that killed so many young Americans, we captured in real time. And I'm still surprised we have access to these data loops, because we have access to the transmissions from the NextRad network that are used to manipulate weather systems. And what happened in that case was, because of the repelling effect of those transmissions, and picture this scenario, when there was that convective cell over that location and transmitters energized all around that cell, and we recorded that, it's posted online, that in effect held that cell in one place. It precipitated out in one location. We can speculate about agendas and objectives. We can't know that. But the fact that that storm was manipulated is beyond dispute. Same with Hurricane Helene. We recorded that in real time. The frequency transmissions manipulating that storm and steering it into place. It's indisputable. These are patented technologies. Hurricane Harvey, we recorded that. How did meteorologists know 7 days in advance that Hurricane Harvey was going to go where it went and sit there for 3 days? How could they possibly know that? Frequency transmissions held it there. We recorded that in real time. And again, these people are reading scripts, Tucker. They're literally reading scripts passed down to them by Raytheon, private defense contractors Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, that are neck deep in climate engineering, everything, patents, operations, everything. And they literally supply and provide the, quote, forecast, which is the scheduled weather, to the National Weather Service and NOAA, our nation's weathermen. That passes all the way down. And local meteorologists simply, they know how long their leash is. They're protecting their paychecks and pensions. They toe the line as well, just like the safe and effective in the medical community. Everybody just toes the line because they don't want to disrupt their personal paradigm. These storms are being steered and manipulated, period. That's beyond dispute.
I'm glad you keep bringing up the COVID vax, because it would be hard for my middle-aged brain to accept a lie at this scale? Like, how could you do that? How could you hide something this big, this profound from an entire population? Except I just saw it 5 years ago with the COVID vax, which was like a total lie. And now there's no dispute about the fact that they lied about it, but no one was ever punished and most people believed it. So I know for a fact what you're describing is possible. Can you, but actually before I forget, let me ask so who pays you to do this? Like this is quite an operation that you're running. You're clearly, I guess, not in it for the money. Like this is a bigger movement than I was aware until right now. So you're running lab tests on rainwater. You're researching this actively. Like, is this a volunteer effort? How and why are you doing this?
Because I can find no greater point for existing. How can I possibly look the other way? I was restoring habitat in Northern California, east side of Lake Shasta, habitat that was decimated by irresponsible logging practices. I wanted to do that the rest of my life. I wanted to plant trees and watch them grow the rest of my life.
Oh, good for God bless you.
I mean, there's no greater solitude than what I was doing. But how was I to continue doing that, knowing what I knew? When the solar output reduction happened that I mentioned earlier, and I began to test rain, knowing the implications of toxic rain that contained aluminum. By the way, aluminum in regard to not just killing soil microbiome, but tree root systems. This is peer-reviewed study. Since that bioavailable aluminum, they shut down nutrient uptake. So the trees die a slow, protracted death, and all official agencies blame beetles. The trees are dying because of the beetles. That's all we hear. And the bottom line is, beetles are a symptom of a sick, dead, dying tree. My father was an arborist. I know trees. I love trees. When I was in kindergarten, they had to come out after recess and drag me out of the tree because I didn't want to come down.
Yeah, and I feel the same way.
I mean, with no trees, no people. That's simple,
Amen.
Right?
That's right.
So how was I to continue doing that? I can't look myself in the mirror. I can't look my children in the eyes. How could I not do this? And if we carry this further, Tucker, you know the bees are collapsing, right?
Oh, of course. I know very well.
So we know this year we were told 70% collapse this year. That's staggering. That's incredibly alarming. But what's the real figure? The real figure is that's a 70% collapse of the 20% that was remaining. We're down to single-digit percentages of pollinators left right now. We know insect populations have declined. This is terrestrial and aquatic insect, 80 to 90% globally.
It's very noticeable. And if you don't believe it, remember the windshield on your parents' station wagon as a child in the summertime was covered in bugs. And that is not, I drive in a rural area every night and no bugs. That's real.
No bugs, no people. Also, we publicized this in 2012 with my work with former government scientists that could speak out because they were retired. And the science community tried to marginalize us. And now they've had to admit to it. If your listeners search insect apocalypse, they'll find the alarms going off all over the globe because this translates to plankton as well. No plankton, no people. We have peer-reviewed science study now from the Atlantic. Plankton population is down 90%. 90. Other oceans not far behind. That's the greatest oxygen producer on the planet. That is the base of life on Earth, plankton. We are the human race right now, Tucker. I've used this example before, but it sends a message that's very accurate. It's like occupants of a car parked on the railroad track. The train is seconds from impact, lights flashing, horn blaring, and they're trying to decide what station to put the radio on. I mean, no matter what other issue we're facing, and I would argue power structure maneuvering right now from conflict zones to carnage zones, many other factors are directly related to the unfolding and accelerating biosphere collapse, which climate engineering is fueling, not mitigating. It's fueling it, and they will not let go of this covert weapon of control. It is the crown jewel weapon with which they can, have been, and are bringing populations to their knees, including our own, without those populations ever even knowing they're under assault. They're not going to let go of this weapon. In regard to our military brothers and sisters that are participating in this, because many ask that question, why would they? But the bottom line is, and I've heard you say, I just heard you cite this, and I thank you for doing so, that our military brothers and sisters took an oath to protect their populations. I heard this on a former presentation you just made, to protect their populations from all threats, foreign and domestic. So they're being compartmentalized. They're being told that these programs are some benevolent, necessary operation just like the pilots in Vietnam, I'm sure were told when they were spraying Agent Orange on everybody, they're not told this is going to kill your comrade on the ground. Of course, they're not told that. So here we are.
And I think in a lot of cases, people don't know. They don't think it through. I mean, again, they're so high on this false feeling of omnipotence. Like, we're in charge. We have the technology. We can make things better. I mean, people delude themselves. I think I know good people delude themselves into committing evil because, they think they have this power that they actually don't have. So, okay, the bees start disappearing, the bats, as you know, of course, insects, plankton. These are all phenomena that most people are not going to notice because they live in cities. They're not in touch with bees, okay, or insects. But the trees dying is very obvious. I mean, these are, plants that live for 100 years and all of a sudden they're dying. The fir trees are dying. Give us a sense of American forestry right now. Like, how are the trees in this country?
I think the more important statistic might be globally at this point because we have that statistic. Tree cover has declined since pre-civilization baselines, 66%. 66% gone. The remaining 1/3 is dead and dying. Trees, we've changed atmospheric chemistry so much. Forests do not smell like forests anymore. Anybody who knows trees and knows what forests once smelled like,
yes,
knows that scent is gone. Why is it gone? Because of the now intense UV radiation that's bombarding the planet. And we're getting, by the way, UVC in the surface. I mentioned the ozone layer collapse. Climate engineering, single greatest factor. And the climate science community acknowledges this, by the way, Tucker. They acknowledge openly, if we geoengineers, if we haven't been for 80 years already, by the way, these programs were immediately deployed after World War II. That's how long they've been ongoing. But the science community openly admits that if we were to geoengineer, it would destroy the ozone layer. We had a former NASA contract engineer working directly for geoengineeringwatch.org with state-of-the-art metering equipment into 5 figures we supplied. And again, we do this out of pocket. We don't monetize anything. Our film, The Dimming, the groundbreaking documentary, The Dimming, which is the standard on this issue, 26 million views, non-monetized, posted for free the day it was done. I'm in this for the cause. If we don't win this battle, nothing else matters. And back to the trees the forest that doesn't smell like forest anymore because the trees are shutting their stomata. That's a respiratory port on the trees, allowing them to breathe, to feed on carbon, to release oxygen. They are not respirating. They're dying a slow, protracted death. That's the second greatest oxygen producer on the planet. Again, from every conceivable direction, climate engineering is pounding the nails into our collective coffins, but they will not let go of this covert weapon of control. And for those that say they wouldn't do this to themselves, again, they already have. We detonated 2,400 nuclear bombs on the planet. How many people know that? The Nevada detonations, which they did in total secrecy, right? We know now from peer-reviewed study, the downwind fallout from the Nevada nuclear bomb detonations killed no less than 700,000 Americans. That's peer-reviewed study. How many people know that? So again, they don't care about the consequences of what they do. We know as far as biological testing, according to the Washington Post, as of 1977, U.S. military had conducted no less than 239 open-air biological tests on innocent, unknowing civilians.
Oh, come on now. Biological warfare tests on Americans?
Yeah, I know you know. You must know that. Look it up. I mean, this is historical record, again, covered by mainstream media.
We had a revolution over a tea tax, dude. I feel like this, you can't put up with this. I encourage all of your listeners to look up every single thing I state. That is very easy to find that statistic. Washington Post first published that in 1977. I hope it's clear from the statistics I'm citing. I'm not shooting from the hip. So again, this is business as usual. And why people can't face that is perplexing. And let's look at Zbigniew Brzezinski. I know you know who he is, former U.S. presidential advisor, going all the way back to Johnson. What did he state in the record? Your listeners can look this up very easily as well. He stated, with today's technology, it's far easier to kill 1 million people than to control them. You think these people are here to help? Really? So again, I want to stress that the amount of layers with this issue, and there's many legitimate causes of concerns at this point in time, if we don't deal with what's happening in our skies,
we're not going to be here long. And let's look at, if we could look at COVID for a moment, we know that, for one, the world's second most recognized climate engineer, Dr. Ken Caldera, former DOD scientist, we own an audio of him at geoengineeringwatch.org. In his words, stating what he did for the DOD was to design methods of spraying pathogens into clouds to infect the populations below. We know in the outbreak of CV-19, at one point, 85 countries were infected in 3 days. That's indicative of an airborne dispersion. We know from Italian researchers, they found CV-19 attached to airborne particulates. Do not all these dots connect? They certainly would appear so. We know from our precipitation testing, we have polymer fibers and graphene in our rain. Graphene is like a vascular machete. I mean, it's listed in geoengineering patents for certain purposes. Again, they don't care about the consequences, but those two elements also, Tucker, are used militarily as biological carrier platforms to carry a pathogen from the clouds to the ground to infect the population below. Why is that in our rain right now? Could they, at any point of their choosing, put something much more lethal into the precipitation and level the playing field? Certainly they could.
This is also shocking.